Welcome back. In this video section, we're going to be focusing on log analysis, reporting on those logs, and alerting on those logs, and how that can be accomplished inside of Azure. Now, there are a number of third-party solutions out there that customers will use, things like Logstash or Splunk. But Azure does have its own, and it's called the Log Analytics Service. And we'll talk about that specific service, how data can be ingested into that service, then how reporting, of course, can be built on top of it. We'll then dive into specifically what data to collect, how you can configure the log analytics service to specify that individual data, even though you may set up your VMs or your services to push all of the logs. We'll talk about how to query that data and, of course, make that data available inside of the portal as well as other interfaces. We'll talk about alert management and how you can build an alerting system off of the logs that you're ingesting. And then we'll talk about how the reporting really comes together. There's a number of different what Azure calls solutions that are available out of the box. Those will provide a number of great reports that you can just get started with from day one. But there are also ways that maybe you're going to want to build your own specific reporting based on your own business requirements. And we will, of course, want to talk about that as well. Now, in this specific video, though, I want to start by just talking about the Log Analytics service, how you can get it up and running inside of the portal, and then we'll do a quick walkthrough of what is available inside of the portal, and then we'll start to dive into specific sections of it, especially talking about data ingestion. So with that, let's head on over to portal, and we'll talk about all of these different items right here. We'll talk about what some of the different capabilities are within the Log Analytics service before we start to dive deep into some of these specific areas. Okay, here we are back in the portal. You'll notice I've already got a couple of resource groups here, but what I want to focus on is this Log Analytics service. Now, I've already added it to my navigation area, but let me exactly show you where this falls into the navigation. So we'll go down here to More Services. We will scroll down quite a ways down to Intelligence and Analytics. And inside of here, you will see that there is the Log Analytics service. There's a number of other different features, which most of these are considered big data services, but Log Analytics sits on top of a big data service of Azure. So it is a bit of a black box type of service, but it does still provide you a lot of great capabilities for you to be able to view and monitor about services, VMs, and so on within your given subscription. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Log Analytics, and of course I do not have a Log Analytics deployment quite yet, so let's go ahead and walk through the creation of that. And it's fairly simple. Now you'll notice that there is some naming differences here. And the reasoning behind that is because there are some changes that have been going through with respect to Log Analytics. Log Analytics, as I talked about at the very beginning of this video series, is a part of the operational management suite. However, it is also available to be leveraged as an individual service. So what you are actually creating is the workspace or the portal, the web front end for Log Analytics. You're also creating a storage account that will be used for all of the log ingestion. You are also deploying a analytics set of services behind the scenes, provide you APIs for you to be able to do your querying and so on that the web front end actually sits on top of. So let's go ahead and create a workspace, and we will put it into a new resource group. Apparently I cannot use, okay, so I cannot use underscores. Let's put in a dash. That should be okay. There we go. And we're going to deploy this. You'll notice that this list of regions is a lot smaller, and that's because Log Analytics does not necessarily need to be in the region that you are using from a subscription perspective. And most customers, of course, are using multiple subscriptions. So what you're going to want to do is put it into a centrally located region that is going to be leveraged then by all of your different subscription resources. At the end of the day, all of your resources are going to be pushing their logs to a storage account in whatever region the workspace is deployed. So in this particular case, I am going to choose Canada Central, and I'm going to specify the pricing tier. There are 3 different sets of tiers. There is a free tier, there is a per node tier, and there is a per gig tier. And of course, you can look at what the differences are of these inside of the pricing pages. I am just going to go ahead and choose the free tier because I am actually going to be demonstrating a lot of the capabilities inside of Log Analytics using a different subscription than what I have here. I actually have access to a demonstration workspace where I can actually show you live data, live resources, and how all of it comes together. But for the purposes of deploying something new, I'm just going to use this right here. So let's go ahead and click OK. This is going to go through the deployment process. As soon as this is completed, we'll go ahead and into the workspace and we'll talk through it. Okay, so you see here I've got myself a new Log Analytics Workspace. Let me go ahead and click on into that. And like almost every resource that I've ever talked about within any of the video series that I've done for PAC, you'll notice that there are a number of overview pieces up here at the top. Of course, viewing that the resource does exist, what resource group it's in, it is active, it's sitting inside of Canada Central, which subscription it's tied to, my pricing tier, all of those kinds of things. I, of course, can get access to the activity log. I can control the role-based access control for this particular resource. I also, up here at the top of the overview section, can go into the OMS portal. And this is the web front end that I talked about a little earlier for where you're going to be able to view your reporting, where you're going to do your configurations and things of that nature, where you're going to create your own custom log fields, where you're going to create your own custom reporting or custom solutions, things like that, where you can, of course, do your log querying. Now, some of the features of the OMS Workspace are available here inside of the Azure portal, and that's what I want to talk about right now, though. So the first thing, of course, we also have the settings area where you can control the locks. I can view the automation script, which is, of course, the ARM template. There are also some advanced settings available here. And these are some of the things that we're going to go into more depth in the next couple of videos. But this is where you can control what resources or servers, because this is a hybrid service, just like all of the others that I've talked about, are actually pushing data and making log data available to the Log Analytics service. That's where this configuration is done. Now, this is also available to be done inside of the OMS portal or inside the Workspace portal, but you can also control it here. And we separated this intentionally because we wanted to allow you to give access to those who needed to do this configuration, but not necessarily give them access to the reporting itself. You can define what data is actually going to be configured based on the types of logs that are being ingested into the analytics service. We'll talk about this in a lot more detail in a couple of videos. You can also create what are called groupings. So in other words, you have a set of VMs that are pushing logs into the Log Analytics service, but in order for you to create some very good reporting on those VMs, you don't want to have to create a query where there is a filter based on each VM name. Instead, you create a group first where all of those VMs are part of that group, and then you can actually create your query based on the group name, thereby saving your query capabilities. So let's now go back over, and as I said, I'm going to go into these in more detail in future videos. Let's go back over here into the general. Now, in the general area, what you're going to have the ability to do is some of the features inside of the OMS portal, but directly here inside of Azure. So we can actually run through a quick start, and a quick start is going to allow us to help choose data sources, what data is going to actually be pulled from those data sources, and so on, just like I was just showing you a minute ago. You can actually see a quick overview the workspace, which is just basically going to give you the last 24 hours of data, and you'll notice there's nothing here because I don't have anything connected to it yet. So let's go back over. I can take a look at the custom view designer. Now, the custom view designer we're going to talk about in the last video of the series. This is where you can create your own reporting, create your own quote-unquote solutions, define what queries those solutions should be based off of, and so on. You can actually do log searching directly here from within the portal. You don't have to go into the workspace portal. Now, once again, I don't have any data, so there's no UI for me to actually do any searching against, but we'll go into searching in a future video. I can take a look at what all of the solutions are that have been put into my particular workspace. You'll notice nothing here. Completely blank workspace. It's going to be up to you to define this. I can specify the pricing tier, and this is something you can change on the fly, by the way. So yes, I chose the free tier, which allows me to get, I believe it's 500 megs of data per month, or 500 gigs of data per month, but I can actually change this. It also controls the data retention. So there, depending upon the tiering, you can get as much as a year's worth of data retention, or you can only have 30 days of data retention, which, as you can see here, there is the data retention. Now, as I said, this data retention is controlled based off your pricing tier. So because I'm free, my data retention is limited to 7 days. I can look at the log analytics usage. And basically all this does is tell me the amount of data that has been processed inside of my particular workspace. And this is something you're going to want to keep an eye on, especially if you are a live enterprise customer, because this is what's going to control how much you're paying for your log analytics service. I can, of course, look at the properties, which is pretty standard. I can go into the alerts area, and I can actually create new alerts inside of my log analytics workspace. Now, the user interface for this inside of the portal is still under preview. The full interface for alert management is actually inside of the OMS portal, and of course, we'll go into that in a lot more detail in a future video. You can create saved searches. Now, of course, these saved searches are going to be based off queries that you have defined inside of the portal. And we, of course, give you a number of them available to you out of the box. These saved queries can then be used either as part of solutions, or they can actually be used as individual reporting pages inside of the portal. Lastly is the service map. This is a specific solution that allows you to view how different resources inside of your subscription are connected together. What type of connectivity is being done? Is it a TCP traffic over a specific port? Which VMs are talking to which VMs over that TCP traffic? You know, those kinds of things. And I'll show this to you when we go through the solutions area. And then we also, of course, have the ability to control data sources directly from here. So I can specify virtual machines, servers on-prem, in order to provide your hybrid connectivity. You can also connect storage accounts, thereby allowing you to ingest log data that has already been sitting around, that you've already had available maybe for the last year or so, that you want to be part of your historical reporting. Of course, you can also push in the Azure activity log, and you can then configure the scope of different data as well. This is a preview feature, is fairly new. You can also push additional Azure resources directly to your log analytics. So if you remember from the first video series that I did, I covered in a lot of detail Azure Monitor, which you can see here. And in Azure Monitor, you have the ability to choose individual resources inside of your subscription and have their diagnostic logging automatically pushed to Azure. So event hubs, for example, storage accounts, most networking resources all have the ability for their diagnostic logs to be pushed directly to log analytics. And that's where the Azure resource listing would show if I had, in fact, pushed any of those particular resource types and their logs directly to log analytics. So this is what's available inside of the Azure portal. Now, if we want to go to the OMS portal, let me go ahead and click on that, and this is where we'll finish off this particular video. As soon as the portal is up and running, we'll go ahead and we'll show this to you and walk through some of the basics. Okay, here we are, and you'll notice this has a very different look and feel. This is in fact the OMS portal, or your workspace portal, and you can tell by looking at the URL up here, there's the name of the workspace that I just created. The URL is obviously very different. It is not .azure.com. This is where all customer workspaces exist. You'll also notice this is very blank. There is nothing here. And that's because I have not added any solutions to this view. Now, let's talk over here on the left-hand side. We've got the home page. I think that that's fairly obvious. This left-hand nav bar does not ever go anywhere. I also can go directly to the search area directly from here. So here is my log search area. Once again, I have no data, so log search has no capability at the moment. I then also have the solution gallery. And this is where I can add all out-of-the-box solutions that Microsoft provides to all customers when they create their Log Analytics Workspace. You can see, there's a lot of them here. So it's going to be up to you to pick and choose which ones make sense. So what I will do in this particular workspace is I'll go ahead and I'll put in the activity log analytics one, and I'll make sure that I add the activity log as a connected source to my specific Log Analytics Workspace. And we'll go through that in the next video or the video after when we start to talk about how to connect different resources. So what this is doing is it's adding the solution to my particular workspace. It's bringing in all of the canned queries that make up the reporting view that you're seeing right here. This is just a snapshot of what some of the reporting would look like for the activity log analytics. And then this would actually then show up. There is an overview pane that will show up inside of the portal. The last item here on the navigation is where you can actually view the usage. In other words, the amount of data that's been ingested on a per day basis within the scope of your Log Analytics Workspace. So let's go back over to home. Fortunately, the solution still has not shown up yet. The last thing I want to show you is up here at the top. Much like the main Azure portal, there are a number of things that you can see up here on the top bar. We have a notification window, which shows primarily alerts based on your alert management. And of course, no alerts have been defined as of yet, so there's nothing here. We then also have an information tab, which allows you to change the specific language of your portal, and you'll see that there is a specific set of languages that you can choose from. Now, by default, it will take the language that you defined in your Azure portal as the default one first, but of course, then you can change it on the fly. Last thing to mention here, because the rest of this is just showing the name of the workspace and the tiering, is the settings area. And this is something that we're going to go into a lot more detail in the next couple of videos, where we'll start to talk about what solutions have been added, what connected sources have been added, how we specify what data to be actually loaded into the analytics engine from the logs, what computer groups, how we define storage accounts, alerts, and so on. So all of this will go into more detail in the next couple of videos. So with that, let's head back over to the PowerPoint deck and we'll talk about what's coming next.